Hi, hope you're well. For those who don't know me, it's Ben from My Cycling Coach, where we have now helped over 500 cyclists achieve 3 watts per kilo and beyond with their fitness, health and riding. If you want to check out some of the testimonials from those riders who we have helped, then please check out the link in the comments or the description below. Today's video then, something that I want to chat through, really important. I've been getting a lot of questions around this, certainly from riders who are just so busy through the week, working all day, every day, weekends, then family, lots of other things going on, who are really struggling to fit riding in, or when they do get on the bike, are really just jumping on and riding and then now struggling to make progress. They've got to this point of the year and it's been very much a plateau since the start of the year, and have become a bit frustrated with this, not knowing how to actually then get off that plateau and make progress with the minimum time they do have available. So the topic today that I wanted to run through based on this is really minimal dose with your training to create maximum progress with your power, fitness and health. A structure, a framework that you can use and incorporate into your week, even when you are really busy. And yes, it's probably going to take a few changes to your schedule. It may mean that some mornings you may have to get up an hour earlier, or you may have to squeeze it in the evening, or at the weekends you may have to get up early before the family does to get a ride in. But if that desire is there to really make the progress and enjoy riding your bike at a whole new level, be able to climb faster, keep up more on group rides and just feel like you can move off the plateau, I hope that that progress will build motivation and more enjoyment for you to actually be able to do these things. So really, we're just going to take 3 rides over the week that I want to give you this framework today, that if you use this, I've used this with, as I say, hundreds and hundreds of riders who have been very time crunched, and I have had periods over my life and career, young kids, obviously family and everything, where I have implemented this as well, and I found that it's worked every single time. So we're really just going to take 3 rides over the week, okay? And the first ride that I'd like you to really try and focus on is a threshold training session. Okay, so we're also going to bring some structure into these rides, the time that you do have available, as this is actually then also going to mean that you're going to make that progress, rather than what you may be doing at the moment is where, you're just jumping on and riding and not really focusing on anything with the ride. So if we can really bring some structure, that's also going to maximize the time that you're spending on the bike. So the first ride, as I say, is a threshold session. Warm up with this session, 10 minutes. I'd always recommend a minimum of a 10-minute warm up. And then I'd like you to add in some threshold intervals. So this could be at your threshold power, if you can track power, or heart rate, threshold heart rate. And these intervals, the durations of them, they can be anything from around 8 minutes to 20 minutes in length. And they need to be at an intensity of around 90 to 100% of your functional threshold power or functional threshold heart rate. So you, with those durations and those intensities, obviously if the intervals you are doing are longer, they're probably going to be slightly closer to the 90% of those thresholds that I've mentioned. If the intervals are shorter, then you're going to increase them up to closer to 100% of your threshold power or heart rate. But just adding that structure in there, 1 ride threshold session, as I say, you can build it out 10 minutes. You may do 2 15 minutes efforts. You may do 3 8-minute efforts. You can work the 2-to-1 rest ratio. So really, the time that you are working, you can just halve the rest period or recovery period between, and that will allow you to get some real good quality structured intervals in. But then at the end of the session, perform that cool down there as well. Within an hour, can create a really good quality threshold session there, bring some structure in, and that's really going to allow you to actually start making some progress there. And within an hour, get some really good quality work done. As I say, with that first session, it could be in the week. You may do that hour early in the morning. You may do that hour later in the evening. But set a day with where you're going to do that, and that's going to allow you to really maximize that progress there. The second session is a VO2 max workout. So one of the best ways, or certainly looked at the most bang for your buck in terms of improving power, fitness, but through all of your training zones. So not just the top end, which is the VO2 max power heart rates. You will need to hit those top end powers and heart rates to make the progress there. So it's not just going to develop your top end, but VO2 max training has been viewed as one of the most efficient ways to actually make gains with your power and fitness for time crunched cyclists, athletes, riders, people there who are trying to train. And if you do only have an hour, performing some good quality VO2 max intervals regularly through the week, or even if it's just once or twice through the week, is going to allow you to see some progress there. So what should a VO2 max session look like? Again, 10 minutes warm up, and then the VO2 max intervals want to be anything in duration wise from 3 to 8 minutes in length. And the intensity of this, they then want to be anything from 106 to 120% of your functional threshold power or functional threshold heart rate. So again, if the intervals are shorter, so you may find if you're doing some 3-minute VO2 max intervals, you want to be up at that 120%. If you're doing some longer 6, 7, 8-minute intervals at VO2 max, then you want it to be closer to that, around 106%, to ensure that you are accumulating that time in that VO2 max zone to maximize the adaptations. Again, the work to rest ratio could be 2 to 1 again. So if you're doing a 3-minute interval, or if you're doing, let's just say, a 5-minute interval, have half the amount of time with the recovery, go back into the next one. And that will really allow you to maximize your progress with that there and get a real good quality VO2 max session in. And again, 10-minute warm up, structure out some intervals, use some there that I mentioned. It might be 3 or 4 or 5, depending on the time that you do have. 10-minute cool down, and again, within a 1-hour session, you will have got some really good quality focus work in there. And those 2 sessions alone, threshold and VO2 max, if you can only do 2 rides through the week and you target those, then that's really, you're going to see much greater gains, much more progress than if you're just jumping on and riding at the moment. Of course, then around this, the third ride, it would be really good just to add in some endurance work around this. So zone 2, if you like, you may have heard that before. Ideally, 70% of your FTP, or functional threshold heart rate, again, is the ideal intensity to be training at when you are doing zone 2. Seen this through a lot of research, but again, the hundreds of riders I've worked with, 70% of your FTP is that sort of sweet spot, if you like, with the zone 2. And if you can incorporate another ride, so a third ride, with some time at that intensity, brilliant. So you may find, just as a weekly structure and an example, you may do your threshold session at the start of the week, so on a Monday or a Tuesday. You may then do your VO2 max session on a Wednesday, Thursday or Friday, whichever way works best for you. Ideally, maybe a rest day between the 2 would be good there, as they are slightly higher intensity sessions. You can, of course, do them the other way around. You may do the VO2 max session at the start of the week, the threshold session at the end of the week. There's no real, if you're only doing these 3 rides through the week, it doesn't really matter how you structure those, as long as you have 1 rest day between. And then at the weekend, that's where you may then go to do some of that endurance work. If you can't ride at the weekend, you may even put that third ride in during the week. Ideally, to get some real good endurance adaptations, we want to be riding at that intensity for a minimum of 1.5 hours, so 90 minutes really, to get some good benefits there. But completely understand sometimes you may not be able to get on the bike for an hour and a half through the week. So it may be that you can only do an hour. You'll do that in the week. There may be some weekends, though, where you can plan it in. You can get some time. You can do an hour and a half. You might even be able to do 3 hours. You may even be able to, just 1 weekend a month, plan it into your schedule, your work schedule, family schedule and everything, where you say, the 1 weekend of the month where I'm actually going to try and get out and do 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, 100-mile ride. That's going to be your longer one there. And then the other remaining sort of weekends or weeks, you're just going to try and get a minimum of an hour and a half in zone 2 as that third ride. So just wanted to run that through that today. Speaking to a lot of guys at the moment, on shift workers, guys who are traveling a lot with work, flying all around the world and trying to fit their training in, and who have really got to this point of the year and who they've just not made the progress that they wanted to because they've been so busy, and who are now just jumping on and riding. But if you implement that 3 ride per week structure that I've mentioned, and you haven't really been doing any structure at all with your training, over a 8 to 12 week period, you will see some fantastic gains with your power and fitness there. Just on a side note here, before you start doing these sessions and training with this structure and intensity, please just perform a FTP test, functional threshold power test, so that you can get some accurate training zones in place, so that when you are doing certainly the threshold workout, the VO2 max workout, but even doing the zone 2, that you actually know that you are riding at exactly where your current specific level of fitness is. Because this is another thing that I'm speaking to riders too. They've done some training at the start of the year, done an FTP test in January, did do some training at the start of the year. There's now been a period where they haven't done much training, and they've tried to get back on the bike after a few months off, or even 6 weeks off, and tried to train at the same FTP that they were doing at the start of the year, and have found they've not been able to complete the sessions. And that's, you don't want to just continue to then fight to try and complete the sessions, because 1, that's not very good for your fitness. You won't make progress with that because you probably won't be completing the sessions. But 2, psychologically as well, if you're going into all of your sessions and not being able to complete them, then that's also going to really demotivate you. And I say, we want to make that progress to then build that motivation and enjoyment. So get an FTP test done, plan out some now with the sessions that I've just mentioned there, incorporate those in with those 3 rides, and you should start to see some fantastic progress with your power, fitness, and then just feeling stronger out on the road, more confident with your riding, which should then equate to riding faster, climbing faster, enjoying your group rides more, just generally enjoying being on the bike more, but then also feeling good off the bike as well. I hope you found that useful. As always, if you did, please drop a like on the video. If you find any of this content useful, please subscribe to the channel as well. But yeah, have a great rest of your day. Keep up the great work. Fuel smart, ride strong, and keep safe out there. Speak to you soon.